Hello, peeps. This is Kimberly Purpose again. Um, I am just so empowered right now, enlightened, because I'm just really excited about going on this journey about finding out my identity as an Aborigine, and I want other people to be able to open their eyes and be able to see and realize who they are as well. The African Americans who are really the true Aborigines, the black Aborigines here in the United States, in the Americas. But I wanted to continue talking about how all of this, how our heritage and our history has been erased, how we literally were erased from history books, even though there are statues and there's paintings all over Europe that shows proof that we were already here. It shows blacks with afros, and there are books with pictures with blacks with afros here in different parts of the United States. We don't dispute that Mongoloid Indians were here. We were just saying we were here as well. And that's something that we are trying to identify and figure out ourselves, because they had the slave trade and all of that going on. What really happened is that a lot of the black or darker skinned Indians were captured and thrown into slavery. That's pretty much what really happened back in the day. It's not too much different from what took place in Australia. It's just Australia happened at a later time, and I think their slavery was during the 1800s, and they had better documentation then to show exactly what happened with the better drawings, and they started having cameras to be able to document what was happening. But back during the time when they did it here in the U.S., it was during the 1600s, probably even as early as the late 1500s when colonialism sorry took place, and when Christopher Columbus came into the Americas, but it technically, I believe the Indians were being captured prior to then, and it's been going on for a very long time, and it was poorly documented. Or I wouldn't say poorly documented, it's just that it's been erased and nobody don't want to admit what just took place. The artifacts pretty much shows what took place, with the paintings and the artwork and the publications, and now even the DNA, the bones that are found in Brazil showing that we were here in the Americas. It's just so many wealth of information coming out, that's finally coming out and showing the truth of who we are as Aborigines, and finding out that we are closely related to the Aborigines of Australia and the Pacific Islanders, which explains why we look so different from the West Africans. And so a lot of stories have been, or myths have been debunked, such as the transatlantic slave trade that took place in the past. It's been proven through, I believe it was, through Emory University, and I think it was some other colleges they did in a collaboration. This research, the data that they collected, proved that the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen like it did. They didn't bring as many black Africans as they claimed they did. It was far less blacks that were here. It was showing that prior to all this transatlantic slave that took place in the 1600s, there were already blacks here. And the question is, who were these blacks that are on these documentations? Those blacks are the indigenous people that are here. And it's just like everything is just coming to light. But I wanted to share a book with you all, because I wanted to show how another reason why you know, is the reason why our history has been erased as Aborigines is because there's been a lot of whitewashing of history in books that's presented in schools. There's a book that I picked up at the library. Um, it's a book for young people. It's called The Woodland Indians by C. Keith Wilbur, MD. I think I'm going to put a picture of the book so you can see what the book shows you. You see on the cover, if you didn't know any better, the skin is so light and everything, you would think that he's either Mongoloid or even European. Some of the pictures in this book look more European and uh, more European or Mongoloid, or I say not even Mongoloid, maybe Chinese. But I guess it didn't have color. But if you didn't know any better, if you present this to small children, they would think all these people are white, or maybe European, or maybe a Chinese person, or a very fair skinned Mongoloid Indian, to the point, some, they just totally went around the race part that of the blacks that were here. They didn't include the blacks at all, actually, in this book. And I was just going through it, But there was one passage here that I did want to share here, if I can get to it. It says here, this author gave a description of what the Indians looked like, and I believe these were the Indians that were coming down from the Bering Strait, coming from the north part of America. And these are the Mongoloid Indians. This is how he described the Mongoloids. He said, the features of the newcomers hinted of their early Asian ancestry. The women probably had some degree of Mongoloid skin folds over the eyes. Both sexes had scooped, shovel-shaped teeth, sturdy build, light skin that tan easily, and straight black hair without grain or baldness. The Asian latecomers of some 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, Eskimo, Apache, Navajo, Pima, and Yuma people had the more typical Oriental characteristics. So he described them and he called them the latecomers. If you didn't watch this closely, he said the Asian latecomers. You see what I'm saying? In this book, if you don't know any better, I'm glad he put that in there. He's showing that it were latecomers. So there were other Indians that were here prior to the Mongoloids. And it's documented in his book here, which I found amazing. I just read it myself. And so, but then when you go back, I was looking further into the book because I was interested in the Cherokee Indians, because I wanted to get more information about the Cherokee Indians. And when he described the Cherokee Indians, he didn't give no description of them at all. All he said was they were a diverse group of people. And that was it. He didn't give no description of how they look like he did the Mongoloids. He just didn't give no description of these Indians in the southeast. And that's where I'm from. And he just said a diverse group of people. So that's how they sort of erased our history. If you have pictures in the book looking more European, looking like white people, or Chinese or Asian with fair skin, and then they pretty much made it look, and they even mentioned that they were latecomers. They knew that the Mongoloids was not here first. In this book, according to this book, they knew. They just didn't give the details of what the Indians looked like, especially on the East Coast, and that's where a lot of the blacks were. were on the East Coast, and they said the latecomers, which are the Mongoloids, I picked up on that too. So it's like when you read these books, you gotta read between the line. They're not gonna tell you the full truth because they don't want you to know the truth. They're gonna tell you partial truth. So you have to dig deeper and look closer at to what they were saying. And I was looking at this part here at the very front of the book in the introduction. They said that this is what they said. They described the language, the history, the culture and the language of the people, and this is what they said. They said, high on the list of the world's great adventures must be exploration and settlement of great uninhabited America continent. And then I move on forward. It says here, they had no means of records their stories until the day when European observers could put their observations and impressions into words. Therefore, we must rely on the material evidence that was left behind and the conclusion of contemporary scholars who had given voice to their silent relic. Because academic theories are educated speculations until proven or disproven, the reader will not be surprised at such qualifying words as maybe, likely, and probably. See, those are the words they use. They didn't use no factual words in this book. It's based on opinion and they opinion and their viewpoint, biased viewpoint, as I had to say, and they did not look at facts. In other words, especially when they didn't describe the people on the East Coast as what color they were. They just gazed over and said diverse group. They didn't want to include the blacks and admit that blacks were already over here. The Aborigines. And of course, over here they were saying they didn't have no history. This is another story, a lie, that they said that the Indians did not have any written history. Because if I'm not mistaken, they found some. There's two things I found. The Navajo Indians, which are Mongoloids, I believe they are Mongoloid Indians. They had written language, and also they found some more written language on some of the artifacts that were found, and it was Hebrewic language that was written on some of the stones that were found, which they don't like to publicize too much. So they did have a written language, especially I think it was found in Cherokee Nation down here in the southeast, as a matter of fact, where I'm at. So they did have a history. They had written language. They had a language. So I'm going to have to disagree with this writer. This is a lie. This is the whitewashing I was talking about and the justification of why Europeans had to rewrite history. So this paragraph by itself is an example of how Europeans came in here and rewrote the history book and put down what they wanted to say, their feelings, their views, their personality, their beliefs, and what they think. And it's strictly from a European point of view, and not from any of the Indians, not from the Native American Indians, and not from the Aborigine Indians. So it's very one-sided in all the writings that was done in the past. And so, of course, they were making so much money off of slavery, off of the suffering of blacks. They did not want us to have an identity because they were making too much money off of us back then, and even to this day in modern day slavery, which is the mass incarceration of blacks in the prison system, which they still using us in slavery to this very day and trying to keep us down in low paying jobs. So that's still a form of slavery, trying to keep it in place. And what better way is to erase our history and keep it hidden? And this is how they do it. They hide it by having only whites write down the history books. They still do it. A lot of these, I think Dane Calloway in his video mentioned it's a group of educators they tend to be mostly European, all European, who decide what books gets approved for all the educational system throughout the United States. And of course, they're going to pick books that glamorize and put them in a higher light and distort history to make look like Europeans this perfect entity, group of people that never do any wrong. And then of course label Indians as the bad guys, the Native Americans being villains, always fighting them, and then painting black people as slaves, that we didn't have no identity and that they just took us out of Africa, which is nothing but a lie. And the reason why we don't look like Africans is because we have different color skins and different facial features that are different from the West Africans, is because they raped us, which is not true either. The reason why we look so different is because we're Indians. We're more related to the Aborigines and the Pacific Islanders. That's the reason why. So I just wanted to share this with you all. I wanted to do a breakdown of this book because this book did not have any kind of references, and at least the front of the book they did. He was giving partial truths, or he scathed over the truth and like leaving out important details like the color of the skin of the people on the east coast, those Indians. And at least he admit that the Mongoloids were the latecomers, but really the true latecomers are the Europeans, because they didn't come here before the Mongoloids. They came after the Mongoloids. It was first the blacks, then the Mongoloids, then the whites. Okay, they they were so that is how it went. So but this book is a good example. It's not it's a good book for learning more about your culture and your history. It was in the young adult in the youth session, I believe. For this good book is good for middle schoolers and high schoolers. But I noticed that the picture is terribly whitewashed. You would think these are Europeans or Chinese, and they didn't give a good depiction of what the Indians looked like. Their skin was far darker. Mongoloid Indians had darker skin, and the black Indians had darker skin. They were the same color as copper colored pennies, just like they described in Webster's dictionary of what the American was during the 1800s and prior to the 1800s. But I would love to hear what you all think about. Do you all know of any books that are out there that has been whitewashed and has been shown to scave over the truth and hide the truth and to purposely leave out the truth of blacks and the indigenous people? I would love for you to share that. And if you have any books that actually shows the truth and actually do tell the truth, I would love to hear about those as well. But I just wanted to show how in this country indoctrination has taken place, and how black history has been totally erased. The part prior to slavery, they continue to ignore that we were actually indigenous here, and then we actually have rights here to this land, and that we are actually the Aborigines here. So please leave your comments below. I would love to hear from you. Please like this video and subscribe. Until next time, peace and be blessed. Bye bye.